Hi everybody, welcome back to You Get to Decide. Happy New Year. We've walked into 2026. I am super excited to see what this year has in store. I've already started my year differently than I did last year, and I'm feeling I can see my shift. Like I can see how different I am, and I know I shared this in the last podcast, but I can see just who I am differently walking into a new year, which feels super exciting. And then I put my head down and I get back to work. But this is the start of a 10-week series, one podcast a week for 10 weeks, of 10 things I've learned in 10 lessons in my hard seasons. And each podcast is going to be a different hard season and the 10 things I learned in those hard seasons. So it's going to be 100 things in the next 10 weeks. And it's anything from anxiety to relationship with money to business to all of it. And I'm giving it everything that I've learned in the hard seasons. And life is hard, and I want to inspire you that you're not alone, and I want to inspire you so that you get to where you want to go faster. Because one thing I realized is I kept myself stuck in the hard seasons longer than I needed to. And I saw that pattern over and over and over and over once I became very aware, right? Coaching made me very aware. My awareness catapulted in the last 2 years. I've been coached since 2018, and in the last 2 years, my self-awareness has grown so much that I was able to see the pattern quicker, get out of it faster. And what I realized was all of my patterns, all of the hard seasons, I stayed longer than I needed to. So that is going to be a reoccurring theme, 1,000%. So I'm going to go through my 10, and I have my computer here because I don't want to forget them. And I also don't want to get off track, right? Because this is about me, but I want it to be of high value for you. And I don't want to go off on long tangents or long stories. And I may end up giving more than 10, but minimum of 10. So the first thing I realized about all of my hard seasons is that everything happens for a reason. That even when I thought I was absolutely alone, that everything was unfolding perfectly the way it was supposed to. And looking back, there was a culmination of struggles. There was a culmination of patterns that all cultivated who I am today, that I had to go through to become who I am today, that forged in me, and I don't even know if I'm going to be able to name 1, 2, 3, 4, because they're so intertwined. So we'll see how I do here. But when we go through a hard season, we are challenged, and several things happen. If we're looking at it like this is hindsight, right? So I couldn't see this when I was in it, though some of my last hard seasons I could see being in it, which is how my method, the Return of You method was born, because I could see what was happening in the pattern, in the hard season. But a lot of this was like way before I was even aware that I could even control my thoughts, right? So there were so many hard seasons. I was bullied. I was bullied in 2nd grade. I was bullied terribly in 6th grade. I was bullied in 8th grade. And when I say bullied, in 2nd grade, I remember playing kickball at the grade school, right? My local grade school was Winslow School number 1. That was my local grade school. And I remember playing kickball outside and a boy saying, "Let's all watch the fat girl run." Like, I remember this, right? This is like, you don't forget this. And in 6th grade, I was teased for being fat. In 8th grade, I was teased. I sat by myself in lunch. I had no friends in my lunch in 8th grade. 3 girls that sat at the table that I was at every day called me a fat pig. every single day. Every single day, okay? And then I had a boy target me, make up lies about me, to make fun of me, and kind of like segregate me from everyone in the class. Actually, it's like everyone in the school. And he spread these rumors about me, him and this other kid. And I actually see this kid around, this dude. And then the other kid ended up, he apologized to me, like, I don't know, we were in our 30s. And he apologized to me for what he did. But here, like, and these are hard seasons, right? And because I had so much shame, I didn't talk about these things. I believed that I was deserving of that abuse, right? And when you believe you deserve it, you allow it, you don't stop it, and you almost put yourself in positions to be treated that way because that's what you believe you deserve, right? And so I didn't realize I had control over those things. I didn't realize that what came out of their mouth, I was giving value to. Like, I played a part in all my hard seasons. I don't care if I was 5 years old. I played a part. I played a part in them. And you do the best you can with what you know at the time, with the access of the thoughts that you have, okay? Which is why I love what I do for a living, because not only do I have access to all different thoughts now that I never had access to before I was coached, that's what I offer my clients now. They have they have a different level of awareness to their own life, the opportunities that they have, because they have different thought access, right? Their brain is showing them things that would never have shown them if they didn't probably hire a coach. Same with me. I would have stayed in the patterns, right? Because we're just all in patterns. That's it, right? That's what stuckness is. Stuckness is patterns that we cannot get out of. And I had a lot of them, right? It's my relationship with food, my relationship with my body, binging. I'll go into my relationship with money. And the last year and a half, that completely has changed. But it was all my life and I didn't realize it. Patterns of lack, scarcity, not even believing I was capable, believing I had to struggle, that it was always harder for me, that I was alone, that even one of them was my desire. Desire is not a flaw. I thought my desire was like a weapon that the universe or God was using against me. It was like, you want this, but you can never have it. You're not capable. You will be, you are not, I don't know if it was worthy, but you want all these things. And those desires are there just to torture you, right? Like, that's what I thought. No, desire is like what's actually true. And what I realized in all these hard seasons was what was being revealed as I got through them, but what was actually true. And you have to get through the hard season. You have to go through the hard season to, I wrote it down. Every road leads back to you, because every time you go through a hard season, what's forged in you is what was already in you, but it comes out through friction, right? Through the weathering away, through the erosion of the hardness. Okay, we have to go through these hard seasons. It's like why our soul is here. We've left ourselves, and our soul is like calling us back to ourselves through these hard seasons, through friction, through challenge. And I went through a shit ton of hard seasons, right? Okay, I could cry. And what happened was it created in this idea in me, or it embedded the belief so deeply that it was just supposed to be harder for me. Like, I don't know anyone else that lost their smell 5 years ago and never got, well, I know one person that never got it back, smell and taste, from COVID. Me, I'm one of them. I know that there's a lot of us out there, but no one in my circle. One person in my whole circle of all the people I know still don't have full taste and smell from COVID. Okay? I'm one of them. I could use that as it's always harder for me. And that's like, and I have a rare eye disease, or I thought I was going blind at like 24. That, Philadelphia doctors saved my vision. If you have seen what my eyes have been through, it's like wild, okay? But I could use that against myself. I could use that against, if I never hired a coach, and I know this, if I had never hired a coach, I would have continued to believe it's harder for me. My desires are just something to torture me, and that I have to search and search and search the world to fix myself because I'm broken. And that is the life I would have continued to live. Meanwhile, what are the lessons? The lessons are that belief is what kept me in hard seasons. That belief is what kept me struggling. We can say sabotaging. Some people don't like to use that word. I am neutral to that word. But I kept sabotaging myself because I didn't think I was capable. I didn't think I was worthy. Okay? But so to just to go through that, I was never alone. When I was I can't tell you how many times I was on my hands and knees, and maybe you're one of these people that the emotional pain was so bad, or the circumstance you were in was so unbelievably painful you thought you were going to die. I probably have had a dozen, I'm 47, maybe I've had 24, but I can think of over a dozen times where I was on my hands and knees. It was probably a lot more, especially through recovery and binging and things, but where I was on my hands and knees begging for a reprieve, begging to be fixed, begging to be free of the situation I was in and the emotional pain I was in. And I was actually never alone. I was never alone. And what I also learned was, well, let me go back to that. Whether you want to say God, source, universe, and if you don't believe this, then that's up to you and what your choices are and your beliefs and whatever. But my mentors believe that deeply. God, source, universe, something bigger, a creator. I grew up Catholic. I'm not Catholic. I don't have a religion. I'm not putting my spirituality in a box. But recovery definitely brought me back to God. Like, God's not judging or damning or some of these things that some of these religions teach, that I can rely on God. Okay. But in those moments, you're angry, right? You're angry at God. You're angry at fate. You're angry at maybe even genetics, right? You're angry at the world. You're angry at your parents. You're angry at everyone, right? And what I know now, if I could go back, like, these are the things I would want to tell myself, is that you're not alone. You have the capacity to hold this. You have the capacity to look at it differently, that it's happening for you. So what can you learn from it? That the desires that are deep down in you that you're chasing are your fate. They are your fate. It's only a matter of time. Like, that's what I believe today. My desires in me are my fate. As I keep working and keep growing and keep doing and keep healing and keep, right? That it is my fate. It is only a matter of time before I reach my desires. And that's what I would go back and tell myself, or anyone that's in hard seasons. That I am far stronger than I could even fathom. That now my number one statement is I am capable. I'm capable. I'm figuring this out. I can figure this out. And that also, how can I make this easy? What if this is easier than I thought? Because when you think something is hard, you're not going to see if it's easy. You're going to overlook easy. If you think something is hard, if you think life is hard, if you think a situation is hard, if you think something isn't easy, you're not going to see if it is easy, where the easy is. You're only going to see the hard, right? Because your brain serves you by showing you the lens of what you believe. Okay? So I'm always challenging, where could this be easier? Like I'm living in ease. How am I living in ease today? Right? To show my brain that ease is safe, because I made everything hard. Because I thought that I was supposed to struggle. Okay? And struggle forged in me. I mean, it absolutely forged something deep in me. But that's identity can't take me to the next level. She has to go. She can't run the show. She's not driving the ship. She's in me, and now she's using her services in a different way. Okay? Not for struggle. Okay? She's using it now to forge capacity. In a way through ease, I've taught her. Okay? And that's identity work. But what are some of the other ones that I had? So I'm stronger than I realize, that I can feel hard things. I can feel my feelings. I can feel the shame. I can feel the humiliation. I can feel the embarrassment. I can feel those things. Okay? And I have a bigger capacity than I ever thought. Like, because I couldn't feel my feelings, I had a very little capacity. Now I am actively choosing to feel hard feelings in order to build capacity to get to where I want to go. Because if you cannot feel hard feelings and you have big dreams, if you cannot feel like deep, hard emotions like humiliation, embarrassment, fear, overwhelm, like if you can't process those emotions, it's very difficult to do something that you've never done, right? And to get somewhere that you've never been, because you're going to take roads, you're going to fail, you're going to make mistakes in front of people, probably, like all those hard things are going to happen. And if you're not willing to feel what failure brings up in you, if you're not willing to feel it, process it, you will stay stuck. You'll stay stuck, right? Or we're going to use drugs and alcohol or something crazy, right? To numb the feeling and keep going is what will happen. Okay. So I was stronger. And so I use that today. I'm way stronger than I think I am in this moment. And I have a bigger capacity than I think I do. So if I'm showing up doing X amount of work, let's get curious on how I can double that. And then how can this be easy, right? I never needed fixing. This is a big one, guys. I never needed fixing. I needed understanding. My patterns existed for a reason. And it was never because I was broken. They were protection, not proof of failure or that I'm not capable or that I don't deserve my desires. They were patterns that were there for a reason. So I never needed to be fixed. I just needed to come home to myself and understand why they were there. And I never actually asked those questions. Okay? And even recovery showed me my patterns, but didn't take it a step further to solve at the root for why those patterns are there. So I live without those patterns, right? Recovery says you're once an addict and always an addict, and I just don't believe that. I don't believe that. First of all, it doesn't serve me to believe that. Second of all, when you heal at the root, your nervous system feels safe at the root, you're not going to crave drugs, you're not going to crave alcohol. And it's basically just, I am enough. I am enough. I've always been enough. I have enough. Enoughness is the root of why, not enoughness, I guess I'll say, is the root of why we binge, why we come home and drink, why we, numb out, or, I don't know, drugs. It is the nervous system doesn't feel safe being who you are. Your body, it's not your mind, friends, your body doesn't feel safe being who you are. And when you feel safe being who you are, man, life is so much more fun. Like just saying it, I have a physical reaction in my body. This beautiful, peaceful feeling comes through me, which is evidence of the work, right? But all the hard seasons so far, all the hard seasons were because I didn't feel enough being who I was. Those were the hard seasons. Okay? But I also, I was hiding food under my bed at 4, binging, right? So at 4 years old, 5 years old, 6 years old, there was already something wrong with me. I was already different. And then the rest of my life, I've looked for reasons to fix myself. And then what do you do when you think there's something wrong with you? You hide. You don't show people your real you. You don't show up in rooms being who you are because you think that there's something wrong with you. Right? And I don't do those things. Sometimes she rears her head and she's like, we can't show this part of ourselves to the world. And sometimes that feels true. But I try to understand instead of trying to fix. Okay, why is that pattern there right now? I have a belief somewhere, in whatever's happening in my life, if that's coming up, I have a belief that I'm not okay being who I am right now. There's something wrong with me. Right? And then I go back to, oh, there's nothing wrong with me. I am a human being navigating the world, navigating my own brain, my experiences, the stories my brain has told me for 47 years. And how can I see this differently? Right? Because if you're walking around feeling like shit, that is evidence that you're disconnected from yourself and what's actually true. And you're not understanding what's happening. Like you're not taking it to a level of awareness of why you're walking around feeling like shit. You're solving for the wrong thing, most likely. It's internal about what you think about yourself. It's internal. And that shows up in the external. So, okay. Things would have shifted faster if I met myself with compassion instead of trying to fix myself. Harsh judgment, self-ridicule kept me stuck for longer than necessary. And shame prolongs the hard seasons. I'm going to do one on just shame spirals because I've mastered them. I've mastered shame spirals. And I guess, that most people have shame spirals. And they'll take you out. If you don't know it, they'll take you out for years, a shame spiral. Right? Mine takes me out for about 3 days, 2 days. Okay? Because I've learned to master them. I've learned to just be present in them. But that's for another podcast. But when our brain offers us shame is a form of protection. Okay? Like my brain offers me shame when I see myself in pictures. I've shared this before. My brain still offers me shame when I see myself in pictures. And it's trying to protect me by rejecting me before someone else rejects me. So it's doing it out of love. My brain loves me, so it's offering me shame when I see a picture. It's fucking wild, but that's how the brain works. All of this comes from love, right? When you don't think you're okay being who you are, your nervous system doesn't feel safe. It wants to protect you And it wants you to feel safe, so it's pushing everything away that could challenge that you're not okay, or that could show light on that you're not okay, being who you are. It wants to hide you from anything that's going to shed light on that. And so that might be why you don't show up to the gym, or why you keep binging, or and also that feels like shit, right? So what do we do to cover up how bad that feels? We're scrolling on TikTok, we're coming home and having a few glasses of wine, or taking it out on our kids, right? It doesn't feel good, so we act out. But our body is going to push away anything that's going to put a spotlight on that we're not okay, right? So you're not showing up on social media. You keep talking yourself out of making that sales call. Like I just think of this thing. Some people don't walk into a networking event, right? Or you don't start your hobby. And it's all because the body is trying to protect you. So compassion for myself, for the binge eater in me, for the part of me that for all the regrets, for all the things I wish I did differently. And there's a shit ton of them. And some of them have affected my family big time. And self-ridicule and judgment is going to keep me stuck in this situation. It's going to keep me from changing the circumstance that has affected my family. Compassion and meeting myself where I am and allowing forgiveness. My last podcast episode was about self-forgiveness. On how I started this podcast was I did the best I could with the thoughts I had access to. And what happens is when you are in fight or flight in your nervous system, when you are in shutdown, collapse in your nervous system, shame, embarrassment, fear, or you just think that there's something wrong with you, you're shutting yourself off from higher level thinking. You're going to act from survival. And that's what I did most of my life. Because when you are acting from survival, your brain is only offering you so many access to thoughts. Okay? It's going to probably create self-sabotaging thoughts that you believe are true, and then you self-sabotage. Or you don't take action to get out of the situation you're in. Like I go into freeze more than I go into fight or flight. I go into freeze, and I don't like that. So I'm really digging into and studying why I go into freeze. And it comes from my childhood, okay? It comes from a lot of things, but I go into freeze. So when I'm in a shame spiral or when I'm in terror, fear, I shut down. I don't do anything. And that has created a lot of problems in my life by not acting at all. And I don't want to do that. Like I was just thinking, if I was in like this terror moment where something was happening and I had to like take heroic action in a situation, I would not be able to do it. I would freeze. I would shut down. I know that. And I get curious on that, right? Because I'm a mom, right? I want to take really good care of my family. And if I'm in like this alarming situation where something is happening and I need to make heroic, quick choices, when terror comes over me, I go in, like some people go into fight, right? You hear these stories on the news. Some people go fight, flight. Like I freeze. I dead freeze. And I know that that's a pattern, right? I'm just uber self-aware from the work I've done. And I'm really trying to change that. When terror comes over me, which of course it doesn't come over me as often, but when terror comes over me, like, how can I move out of freeze faster? Because that's a pattern too. So, and it all comes from compassion and love. Compassion and love. When we have compassion and love for who we are and who we were, you're going to move out of the hard season quicker, much quicker. Shame is not the way to change or to move in the direction you want to go. Like shame is insidious because it tells you need to feel shame to get motivated. That is a fucking lie, people. That is your mind. That is not true. Shame will not get you where you want to go. And shame is a pattern. It's what it is. Love, compassion, and softness for who we are will move us out of the hard season quicker. Right? Because shame just feels hard. Love and compassion is a softness. And then we have different access to different thoughts and different ideas to get us out of the hard season. We're openly willing to try different things from love and compassion. Shame, we're not. We're not willing to try different things when we are in shame. Most likely, we're going to stay in the same pattern over and over. So I don't know how many I've done, but I have 2 more. Progress wasn't linear on the outside. Looking back in the hard seasons, when I thought they were never going to fucking end, okay, progress was not linear. And I wasn't even sure I was making progress. In fact, we think we're spinning and we're just, this is our life. And it's never going to end. And I think back, and I probably was following my intuition. I just didn't know it then, right? Our intuition speaks to us. There were certain times that, there was a time where I was driving down the road, and I probably said this, but there's, however many episodes of this podcast now. But I remember in my early 20s, I was binging. I could not stop eating. I just could not stop eating, right? And of course I was like, there's something wrong with me. People every day stop eating, and I could not stop eating. And I heard a voice in my brain say, this is not your life. You're going to be in a thin body. And that was it, I don't know, like 20, okay, or 21 or 22. And I heard that voice in my mind. Like, that did not come from me. That came from a higher source. That came from my future self. Okay? And now I know that I'm constantly looking and listening for my future self, my intuition, to guide me to the desires that I know are only a matter of time. Right? All this came from looking back at hard seasons. And my hard seasons, though the circumstance was different, the feelings are not different than any other human. And these lessons are not different either. These are universal lessons. That the timing was never off. It's divine. They happen for us. What can we learn in them? That desire is not a flaw. That we want to be something different than we are, right? That is not a flaw. That's information. And that's our destiny if we keep going. Okay, this is universal for everyone. You're one place in a pattern that's hard, and you want to be in another place. You have a desire. Okay, if you keep going, the desire is actually your birthright, and it comes from within, and your future self is talking to you, guiding you. Okay, this is universal for anyone in hard seasons. I'm going through them again. I'm going to finish up. We're stronger than we give ourselves credit for, and we have a bigger capacity, okay? So, capacity is how much you can hold, okay? The how strong you are is the capability. I survived seasons I once thought would break me, and I expanded because of them, okay? That's universal for everyone. That's what hard season reveals in you. Your depth, your inner wisdom, your ability to, it's just like a coming back to the soul of what's actually true. That we actually are more capable and stronger than we ever think. that our brain is going to crap out on us way before our body, or way before our actual capacity and strength. Your brain's going to say, we can't do this, right? Because your brain's trying to protect you. But that's a lie, right? The truth is when we come home to ourselves and what's actually true. And that's what all these lessons are. So you're never alone. You're not alone. You're not alone. And if you don't believe in a higher being, it's gonna feel really lonely. So how can you believe you're not alone? That something bigger is happening for you. That it's all conspiring for you and your soul of why you're here. Okay, that's the lesson. I didn't need to be fixed. I needed to understand. I needed to understand why I was in the hard season, what created the hard season, right? What was my part in the hard season, and how was I keeping myself there? From love and compassion, okay? Because we have control. We have more control than we think. That's another one. We have way more control in the hard seasons than we think that we do, okay? That's universal, not just me. And then things would have shifted. Things will shift. The more compassion and love you have, the more you meet yourself where you are with curiosity, instead of ridicule, judgment, beating yourself down. So this is where I was when I took you to Universal, going back to the 10, okay? And I said that they were universal and I started to rename them. But this is big. Progress wasn't linear on the outside. It's not going to be linear. We think we're spinning. We think the hard season is never going to end. But what is linear, and I want you to really pay attention to this. It felt messy, scattered, like throwing darts and hoping one would stick. Sometimes it feels like that, right? Or it felt like that for me. Something steady was happening in because I kept returning to me. I kept returning to me. So let me take you through this, because this is universal. We think we're not making progress because nothing is changing on the outside, or it's not changing fast enough. This is what happened in my 2025. But what's happening is very linear. You're stepping away from yourself in whatever the hard season is that's creating deep pain. It's because there's not self-trust. There's maybe a lack of self-empathy, self-love, feeling safe, okay? Feeling safe in the hard season, right? Like some of my hard seasons were binging, destruction with my self-sabotage, and chronic anxiety is going to be one of them, and worry, chronic worry, destructive habits with money. I don't know, there's a bunch of them. Well, all those things are because I wasn't fully connected to me, right? I'm using food to feel safe. You use destructive patterns with money to create some type of false sense of safety. Okay, having to control your kids and they have to act a certain way is a sense of safety for yourself. Or sabotaging relationships, okay? Right, all of that is stepping away from ourselves, because what's actually true is we're safe to be who we are. That there's nothing external outside of us that we need for safety. Food, money, alcohol. We don't need to scroll on TikTok to numb, right? That's because we don't feel safe inside. And when we come home to ourselves, that's the ultimate safety, right? And when we stay with ourselves, the hard season passes quicker, which is why I don't shame spiral for weeks, months, years. I shame spiral for 2.5 days because I stay present with me. It is linear, but it takes, the inside has to change before the outside does. as the internal world is the external world, right? So we're spinning and thinking we're not moving because we're all over the place, sabotaging ourselves in whatever way, or the hard season feels endless, like a tornado. But the more you return to yourself and what's actually true, I'm capable, I'm strong, I'm worthy, I'm enough, I'm smart enough to figure this out, I have the capacity, I'm strong enough to figure this out. Like, that is coming home to yourself. And when we come home to ourselves, which is very linear, we step away from ourselves, we return to ourselves, which is why these hard seasons brought to me the return of you method, which is how I help my clients get unstuck and actually then don't get derailed, right? So you could say I get stuck because I'm in a 2.5 day shame spiral, or you can say I'm not stuck, I'm in a 2.5 day shame spiral instead of months, years, derailment, quitting, right? Because I come home to myself again, if that makes sense. And like I've done through 75 through 80 or whatever, talked about my method. But that's what I realized what was happening. It is very linear. I'm stepping away from myself, I step back. I step away from myself, I step back. All right, our brain tells me I'm not capable, but what's actually true is I am very capable, and so are you. You're very capable. 1,000%. I've never met you, and you are absolutely capable of every single thing that you desire. That is what I learned in the hard seasons. We are all more capable than we think we are. And so I don't even entertain the thought I'm not capable. I'm just like, why aren't I at that level? What is happening? Let's get curious, right? And I try not to get frustrated. That's it. And then the last one, which is very much what I just said, each return was a remembering of what was actually true. Layer by layer, I uncovered myself. I didn't create myself. I was already there, buried under the shit. Buried under the binging, buried under the destructive thoughts that I was listening to, buried under the self-sabotage, buried under the idea that I wasn't capable or that there was something wrong with me. The thought that there's something wrong with you will fuck your life up, especially if you're a high achiever. So many of us have that thought, right? But I'm here to share with you that that thought does not serve you. There's nothing wrong with you. And what I realized was that thought kept me in so much pain. So much pain. I just don't entertain it anymore. Well, there's times where it feels very true. But I just look at that as that's old me. That's the old identity. She's reared her head. She thinks that there's something wrong with us. But that's not actually what's happening. So let's look at the pattern, right? Where's the awareness? So the pathway to what's really, and I wrote this down, so I'm going to read this to you, and then I'm going to finish, okay? So the pathway to what's real usually runs straight through the hardest things you'll ever do. Because in those moments, that's the best in you that finally shows itself, right? Welcome the challenges. Because that is the fire that's born in you, that was in you, that all of a sudden now you see is like, oh, that's who I am. Let's fucking go. Every road is leading back to you. So this is my message for the very first of the 10 podcast episodes, is that you do not have to chase your greatness, that it's already in you. All the greatness was already in me. That's it. It was already there. It lives in the connection to yourself and the choices you make from that place, not from the inadequacy, not from the fixing. So this is the groundwork. I hope that this came across. This is the groundwork for the 10 episodes I'm going to do. And I'm not going to tell you the order because depending on how I feel, the order might change. But I have it very specific in the order, okay? But this is the next 9 weeks now, is going to be the hard seasons and the 10 lessons I learned in each one. And they're going to be universal for every human, which is why I'm doing it, to help you feel like you're not alone, feel that you're heard, and feel like, oh, I'm not broken. Oh, I am totally capable. Oh, this happens to other people, right? So we don't stay stuck in the, well, there's just something wrong with me, and that it has to be hard. Okay, so that is it for this week. And so what I've started to do, which is going to be in the show notes here, is that this drops on Wednesdays. Thursdays at 12 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, I'm going to be teaching on the concepts of the podcast. So it's the very next day, live teaching on a Zoom call. The registration link will be in my show notes here, okay? They're also in my bio and Instagram. But you can come live just to listen to more depth in teaching. I could also give real life experiences or real life practices, right? This is going to be a teaching and a practice. I'm doing this every week this year. I am super excited for this. I already have like so many people registered. So if you are, if you can't come to in-person events that I do and you want to hop on and listen, you don't have to raise your hand. You can just listen, or you can raise your hand and get coached about what something is happening in your own life. Every Thursday at noon. And the registration link, you register one time and then you can come as much as you want. Okay? I mean, it's free. You can come whenever, but I do want you to register at least one time just to keep the link safe. So, but that's it. I'm excited to do this the next 10 weeks, the first 10 weeks of the year. I'm super stoked about this. And I hope this is an immense amount of value. I've shared a lot of these bits and pieces throughout the 80 weeks or 81 weeks of this podcast, but never in this order. And so I hope this hits for you, and I love you all, and I'm wishing you a fantastic 2026, and I will see you next week. Bye, guys.